All right, what's happening, guys? Winston with MoveUp, and today we're going to talk about a really great topic. I've had a ton of people ask me this question: are drivers always crew leaders for moving companies? And the answer is yes and no. Depends how your company is set up. So some companies, to become a crew leader, you got to be the driver. They go hand in hand. But for other companies I've met, they do it where they might have a guy that drives who has a good MVR, has their license, is comfortable behind the vehicle, and can get on their insurance policy, but they're not necessarily the most veteran member on the crew. And there's a different team member who doesn't drive, but they're the crew lead, more of the foreman type role. Ultimately, I think it's about what you want to design your business around. If every crew leader has to drive, there's going to be less of those people available. Here's why. Because not only do they need to have the leadership qualities and the kind of the vocal prominence to lead 3 or 4 team members out on a job site, they also need to be able to have the driving record, vehicle license, piece of it as well. And you got to have that with one person. What I believe is a good model is, I think that, if you can drive, that doesn't necessarily make you a crew leader. Because to be a crew leader, you probably need to have really good skill sets in moving, loading, tiering, packing, but you also, probably will pick up driving as a skill set, because that's a whole nother skill. Packing in the truck, parking, knowing where you can fit, acceleration, follow distance, stuff like that. But it doesn't always mean that the person who is a good driver is also going to be a good crew leader. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that I've learned is they don't always equal. But it doesn't mean that I don't want a driver. Like, I need drivers, right? I got to have them. You might have someone who doesn't get behind the vehicle, but they're awesome with the team. They know the job. They know moving. They know your policies, your processes, your standards. And maybe they're the crew leader for the day. It just depends how you want to structure your company. More times than not, you're going to see a little bit of a hierarchy in compensation as well. So you'll have like a helper or a laborer. That's going to be the bottom of the totem pole. And then above that, you may have a second level to that. You might have like a tier 1 and a tier 2 helper. And then above that, you may have like a tier 1 driver and a tier 2 driver. And for some companies, driver, again, equals crew leader. But another level, if you differentiate them, is going to be driver, then the next rung on the ladder is a crew leader. To me, again, a crew leader, sometimes you'll find people that have great leadership skills, but for whatever reason, maybe they had some stuff on their driving record a couple years back, and it really hurts you to try to put them on your policy. The sticky situation is the compensation. So if you have if you have to pay a little more for a driver, and then you also have to pay more for a crew leader, you have to have 2 of them and a helper, you're spilling out a little extra cost in direct labor for the job. Whereas if you have 1 crew lead driver and 2 helpers, that is going to be the best way to mitigate some of your direct costs in labor. Again, it comes down to how you want to run your business. Staffing wise, it's a little easier if a driver doesn't have to be a crew leader, if they can be separate. Financially, your gross profit margin is going to be better if the driver and crew leader are the same person, and then you just need to put 2 helpers with them. That's going to keep your overall labor per hour for the job probably the lowest, because you might be putting like 2 $17 an hour people with a $23 an hour person, whereas you're putting maybe a $23 an hour and a $17 an hour person out on a job. So with that being said, depends on your business model. You can do it either way, and depends which thing you want to tackle. Like, if staffing is a really hard thing for you and finding drivers is really difficult, then maybe a driver doesn't have to be a crew leader. Like, they can be separate. So you could elevate helpers to be crew leaders, but they don't drive. Or if your margin is more important, your staffing is really good, you have tons of drivers, and you're really just trying to be as lean as you can and make as much money as you can, then it might be better to just say drivers and crew leaders are one role together, and then there's mover helpers, right? So hopefully that helps. Every Monday we'll be on a Facebook Live if you need some good tips, info on how to set up your organization with staffing, recruiting, hiring, anything with the people side. We are here to help you, and we'll see you next week on the next video.